You do know this isn't about Stephenie. You are fighting with God, and you're going to lose. And I would sit back, and I needed that because I'm like thinking, she's right. I will never, ever win in a fight against God. You will never win in a fight against God.
And I think you have to, as a victim, you can't live there forever because it affects everything. It affects your mind, your relationships, your career, your ministry, if you stay in that victim mentality. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephenie.
And I'm Asbel.
And we want to welcome you again to another episode on A Cup of Real. And today we're going to kind of recap. We're going to kind of go back to our first episode where we were talking about our story.
And we're doing that because we got some questions around.
We've had a lot of interest in this. We spoke about this a while back in a group setting, and it definitely piqued a lot of interest. But we get a lot of questions asking, how did you feel?
What were you really thinking?
What were you feeling?
What was in there?
How did you not lose your faith? Why didn't you leave? You know, all these things. I think people want to know in between the cracks what was really going on. So I'm going to ask you a question. If we have time, you can ask me one, but if not, we can do it for another one. I want you to take us into your world, your thoughts. Take us back to what you were thinking. In 2010 is when it all started. And it was a long process, like probably 5 years, maybe even longer. And then maybe give a little bit of history about why you came to that road, that juncture that you wanted nothing to do with ministry. So some people can have a little bit of insight to why you were even there. Because even both of us went into marriage saying, we'll never go into ministry. We both wanted nothing to do with it. Both preachers' kids.
Yeah. And I think it started for me, and we all talk about being vulnerable or whatever, but I was listening to Simon Sinek, and he said something about, vulnerable is getting overused now. Now it's like somebody made a mention in him, and he says this, and I forgot how he paraphrased it, but he wants to be more available, like available. And that's kind of my standpoint is I want to be more available. It's not that I'm saying it from a vulnerable perspective anymore. It's just I want to be pretty open about where I am. It's what I was feeling at the moment. It was the experiences that brought me to the place that said, I don't want to have anything to do with religion anymore. And to me, I was equating religion with, I'll still go to church, but that's all I'm doing. I'm not getting into it because I remember from the time I was 8, I was a pastor's kid, but I was raised in church. So I was born into this. Like literally, but the moment my mom could bring us to church as small children, we were sleeping under pews. I remember we were in that group where there was revival every night. We were highly evangelical, Pentecostal in nature, and very, very conservative Pentecostal. And so I remember my parents shouting and jumping. We did all of that. I remember being under the pews so you could stay out of the way of people shouting so they didn't step on you as a child, sleeping on pews till 11 o'clock at night. That's how I kind of grew up. So I gave my life to ministry. I remember being 15, 16, 17 years old. I would go to work. My dad was out ministering, evangelizing, and I played the piano for him. And I remember going to all these things. And I remember when I fell in love for the first time with a girl and I wanted to be with her and I wanted to go to Ohio. I remember them getting up there and telling everybody that I was chasing a skirt and that's why I left church.
Not your dad.
No, not my dad. And they never told my dad that. And my dad was hurt. But my dad was loyal. And so I remember that was the start. That was the start of saying, something's not right here. And I was young at the time in 19, my personality one is, and I knew the word. I'm like, something is not right in the word. The God of the word that's being preached is this harsh, punitive God. That if I didn't do this, and this, I wasn't deserving of his mercy. So if I failed, it was like if you made a mistake, I was in the altar, pray God. It was like he never forgave you for anything. Does that make sense? And so it just started. And then I began to understand, because I was sexually abused when I was 8 years old. So all that, I had suppressed all of that. So there was anger manifested. Nobody knew. until I got to be 28. That's when it started to come out. Does that make sense? It started to burst out. So when people talk about when children suppress it or whatever, I know exactly what they're talking about. People are like, what do you mean that they? I know exactly what they're talking about because that went with me. But you had all of that, the bullying. So I was bullied in school. There was a lot of things that transpired. So then I didn't want to have that. And I started pursuing my career and I started to see a lot of like, you can be something. I was getting affirmation and people like I was able to whatever. And I'm like thinking, okay, church suppressed me. They talked about me if I didn't do what they wanted to do. But now I'm in this piece of it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go that way. I don't have anything to do with religion. Got married, went through all that stuff, divorced from there. So when I was thinking through the process, if I'm going to remarry again, these are my deal breakers. It is no ministry. That was my number one goal. I want to pursue career. I want a wife who's passionately pursuing career as well. I don't want somebody that needs me. So I'm not that type. I want a partner that we do something together great, like we complement each other. Let's go.
Yeah, you didn't want a needy person.
And I didn't want a needy person. I didn't need all, like I wanted hype it, like I was attracted to that. So when I met you, it was like the best of it. And then I wanted somebody with fun. Let's go have fun. Let's go dancing. Let's go to parties. I don't want somebody that's going to be like, we always have to be in prayer rooms and churches or whatever. I'm just being real. That's where I was.
Well, that's why I'm asking
That's
you.
why you're asking. That's where I was. So we did that. We had fun.
Yeah.
Like we had a blast together. And so then all of a sudden when you told me ministry, it triggered everything.
Took you back.
It took me all the way back. And I'm like, oh, sorry, hell no. That's not happening to me. And that's why I went out. And I'm like, but when you wouldn't leave, it was like, well, I can't leave. There's no reason to.
Well, but go back, because let's recap on that. You were ready to divorce. You offered me certain amount of
dear
money.
Lord. Yeah, we had not been married long.
No.
And so I was like, I don't have much money anyway. I had taken all the debt from my previous marriage that we were still paying off all that debt.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll give you $50,000. Here you go. Let's get out of here. And
I should have just said, all right, bye. No.
We talk a little bit about that, but that's kind of where my mind's eye was. And I couldn't get past, like I was locked in on, I'm not doing ministry.
Oh, your behavior.
I was not doing ministry. Now I know you never tell God no. We talked about that a little bit. But at that point in time, it didn't matter at that point. It was, this is not what I wanted because I kept thinking in my mind, oh, here we go. She's going to become the antithesis of what I did not want to be involved in. I have no desire to do any of that. And I am not doing that. I'm literally not doing that. And I literally stayed in that space and I rationalized in my mind, very similar to the story that I gave in our last episode about the flight, like rationalizing I just was trying to rationalize. I'm like, I didn't change. I told her this from the very beginning. I told her I never wanted to be in ministry. I told her I didn't want kids. I told her I wanted a high-powered partner in career and I wanted her to travel with and we would go to galas and we would do this and we would do that. I told her that. I have not changed in any of my demands. I literally did. I had written it out. I said, I haven't changed anything. She's the one that changed.
Well,
and so I was projecting all this onto you.
I remember.
She's the one that changed, not me.
Well, and you threw yourself into your career.
And so then I just started working. I just said, okay, I can't control that. She's doing that. I could see you in your room praying and crying. I would hear you in your prayer closet. I'm like, here we go. God, this is not what I prayed. This is not what I wanted. Now I think back, thank God for that. And we talk about that. Thank God that you nagged me in the prayer closet. But in the moment, when I was thinking, I'm thinking, this is not what I wanted. But think about what I'm talking about. Me. Pride was major. And the Bible talks about this. Pride cometh before destruction,
yes.
A haughty spirit before a fall. Pride was consuming my life because it was all about me. I was saying, I told her, I did this, I did that. Now when I think about it right now, I'm thinking, you were such a selfish person.
I could think of a good word.
You are a major selfish. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of other things that you were probably calling me, but those are the type of things that I was thinking. And here I am married into a phenomenal family. I had a mom and dad that prayed like nobody's business. I had a father-in-law and mother-in-law who were the epitome of everything. And I was like, I am not doing ministry. And the devil wanted that. He wanted us to break up.
Oh, yes.
He wanted, because remember, if he could have drove, we would not be able to go out and have these conversations that we're having today now.
We wouldn't be doing half the stuff.
Yeah. But that literally was where my mind was. I was so locked into, babe. So I just dove into work 100 hours, and things were flourishing because that's what the devil wanted. He wants to see
Yeah,
what
your
I
career
told
was
you. Look,
flourishing.
my career was blossoming.
And we were
It was,
dying.
and we were dying inside. We were dying. Had you not been in, like literally, the life support was because I would hear those prayers. And that's why I didn't want to be in the house. I'm like, I'm just working because she'd be praying and I would know because I would
you were gone all the
remember
time.
the prayers of my mom and dad welling. They literally, we would be upstairs in our room. You would hear my mom and dad wailing. You would hear it permeate the house.
Yeah.
And that's what you were doing. And I knew it. And I didn't want it at the time. Like, God, this is not what I want. I do not want to do this. And so there was that war happening in the flesh. Like it was the war. No, it was not the flesh. It was the spirit world. It was the evil side of it, and this whatever you would hear this. And so the more I could stay away from it, I didn't hear it as much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I knew you were doing what you were doing.
Yeah.
So that's where I was at the time, and it took a while for it to chip.
Yeah.
Just begin chipping away. And your mom is sending me scriptures, and she would whatever. And sometimes I wouldn't even respond to her, because I'm like thinking, like, but she would send me scriptures, babe, at weird points. Like I knew it was a God ordained. Like, oh, I would see it.
And I
like,
wasn't telling her anything. I told her in the beginning, like, if you go watch our other, Mom, I'm leaving, because I was leaving. And that's when she told me, you go get into your closet in that little apartment. But I didn't tell her much because I was so nervous. I didn't know who to talk to. So I just prayed all the time. But God was growing me through that. But so looking back at what you're talking about right now, so you were wounded.
Very wounded. But I hadn't really addressed it, to be honest with you.
Well, you hadn't
until we started going to counseling. I started to talk to Vonnie Marshall and started to undig, because I had already started. I had gone to counseling when I was 20. This is right before we got married, because there was with outbreaks of anger or whatever, and that's when I began to unpack
about the molestation.
Because I couldn't remember past 8 years old. Like I couldn't remember anything. The only memory that I had was at 5 years old. It was one memory, and it was a fleeting memory of us living in San Bernardino. And I remember me and Loida with this yellow tractor that had white paint on it. It's the only memory that I remember. Mm-hmm. And I remember staring off. I could see the house, could see a tumbleweed. That was really the only memory. And so Dr. Brown was like, something's off. People remember much farther back. You have suppressed something. And that's when it started. And so he would be able, and that's when the memories just started flooding back.
And it was overwhelming.
And then it became overwhelming in the process. There was times I wouldn't want to show up because it was like having to dig deep into what had actually happened to me as an 8-year-old. And I blamed my father for that. My dad didn't know at the time, but I blamed him because he should have known. And he didn't. And that's where Dr. Bryant started to talk to me, is where I started to be able to mend the relationship with my father. Because for a while and my dad didn't understand me. He didn't understand I was different. I was odd growing up. I had big, thick glasses. I was bullied. I was called every name in the book. I was smashed in bathrooms. There was time in school, I would not go to the restroom when they broke class. I would actually always try to go to the restroom during class because there would be nobody in there and I could go use the restroom without being slammed into toilets.
It's horrible.
People doing, it was awful. I remember, I don't have good memories of grade school and high school. Not until I turned in the 11th, when I was a junior. That's when my mom and dad could afford for me to get contacts. So those big, thick bottle cut, whatever, I was able to whatever. And things started to change a little bit, where it was like, okay, he's actually a good looking young man now. And so then I started having, girls started liking me.
Yeah.
And these other type of things. But it was a very interesting piece going, but it made me into who I am today.
But let me ask a question. So you dealt with the molestation with Dr. Bryant. Did you carry that into the marriage at all, though? Had you completely healed from that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Because what happens is then I didn't view sex.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that was just a very, and then it's
a process.
It's a process.
Especially when that's why we hear a lot nowadays about the child molestation. There's a lot going on in government, in the church. And when you hear that, because I've heard people say, well, how do they suppress it? Or they're bringing it up now. You kind of understand that.
Well, I can understand. I can also understand, and I can see things that happen now in other people that I'm like thinking, I've been there. I know. I see the signs. I can see them. I can literally almost guarantee with some people what they're dealing with is certain things that they just don't want to admit. It's hard. It's hard. It's taken me a while to get through
Especially
this. I didn't literally start talking about this until probably about 8, 9, 10 years ago.
But you didn't really talk about it until more recently. You've talked about it more than ever.
I've talked a little bit more because I'm beginning to see it more, and I'm thinking that doesn't define who I am. Who I am is this. And if you're uncomfortable with my story, you might want to understand, why do I feel that uncomfortable? Why am I uncomfortable?
Why are you uncomfortable?
Why are you uncomfortable? And so generally, I don't take it. It's not, this is my story. You have the ability not to, if it makes you uncomfortable to talk about, then generally that's probably because it has triggered something. And it's requiring us to address that issue, and it's hard.
It is hard.
And the older you get, the younger, it's hard. It's hard because,
it is.
But only courage happens in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We only change when we are in the uncomfortable.
Right.
It's the reason why you and I are the way. We've had to have very uncomfortable conversations. We continue to have those uncomfortable conversations because you bring your baggage in. I still bring my baggage in. We now know how to tolerate. We get rid of the baggage. Yeah. We have to
revisit it, though.
That we've got to keep talking about these issues.
Yeah, because we're in a much better place, but we still have to revisit it, and we'll have to revisit it again.
I will tell you this, babe. I learned some stuff about you on a podcast that you went on. I'm like thinking, I had no clue. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I had no idea that those things had actually. Now I understand why certain things trigger you. You know what I'm saying?
But about the abuse.
About the abuse.
Yeah.
Because now you begin to understand. Now I begin to understand, I now see why she reacts to that way. But after 16 years, I, for the first time, heard some things, but that's how God does. Sometimes we think.
Well, I've never really told my story about abuse.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you haven't and you're listening to this today, there's a podcast that she went on.
Got the Redeemed.
It's called The Redeemed Backslider.
Kathy Chastain.
It's your story is it's going to help somebody. It's the reason why I share my story as well. And there's probably things that I haven't begun to tell you as it continues to keep coming out, because it's just, you forget more about what you taught until you start having these conversations.
It was amazing. During that, there were things that I haven't talked about forever, thought about, and they came up, and it almost was it made me emotional. After I got off, I just cried. I was like, I can't believe I went through all that. Because you do use, I don't want to call I was suppressing it, but I want to move on. Yeah,
I want to move on. I don't want to keep dealing in the past, but sometimes your past helps someone else who's actually going through that in their present. And that's what I remember is this is the reason why history is important. So you don't repeat it, number one. And number two is sometimes your past is someone else's present. And so if you can help someone in their current present, give them hope that you're no longer there, that we don't sit there and wallow in it. That's why I have low tolerance for people that live in victimhood, because there is nothing that you can do to me that has not already been done to me. Literally, I have been beat up. I have been bullied. I have been flushed, whatever. I've been sick. Everything that could possibly imagine. I could have stayed in that victimhood, lived there, or I could say I can move through the process. And that's what both you and I are. It's our personalities. We're overcomers.
Yeah. Well, my mantra is for the ministry I do is I survived this. Yeah. I went through it. I survived it.
We survived.
But now it's time to thrive.
Yes.
I'm moving from just being a survivor to moving into thriving. And I think you have to, as a victim, you can't live there forever because it affects everything. It affects your mind, your relationships, your career, your ministry. If you stay in that victim mentality, it really does.
So that's to your original question. That's kind of where my mind was and why I was so locked in of not wanting to do ministry, because there was a lot of things that I faced as a child and growing up, and I saw with my dad and his for all the things that I may have blamed my dad didn't have anything to do for. We didn't really have that father-son relationship growing up that I had desired, because my dad gave 100% of his life to ministry, literally probably 150% of it. If he had to do it over again, it was God, number one, the church, and then family. And so if you wanted time with your father, I had to be in church with him. Mm. Literally. That was the only way I was going to get time with my dad. was in the church.
And you used to hold that against him.
I held it against him. I held him against that. I held him against not understanding and protecting me through the sexual abuse. I held a lot of things against him, and I had to go on a forgiveness journey. And I went on that with my dad, and I think I went on that with you, and I went back to every place that I went to because that was what my counselor said you need to go on, and I forgave. You know what I'm saying? I forgave.
And it was a process.
And it wasn't, for me, it was a process, and it was still a process.
Yes.
Because that's where it all started, because that's where the healing began, was in the forgiveness. And the forgiveness wasn't for everyone. It was for me. It was for me to go and forgive the bullies. I remember went to my high school where I was bullied excessively, and I forgave.
Yeah.
And I remembered and I forgave. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I went through that. I went back to my old church.
Yeah.
I sat and forgave. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, nothing again, wonderful, wonderful people, but it was just the general construct. And I remember now is to say, you know what? My reaction to all of that, we talked about responses and reaction. My reactions were visceral, and I was hindering my own growth because I had taken things out on God that God had nothing to do with.
Yes. And we tend to do that. We combine what happened to us or the abuse with God. Why God? Or why did you allow this? We really do.
But that was a part of it. That was a part of why I was locked in. And I'm glad you didn't give up, because there's no telling where I'd be today. Literally. There's literally.
Well, we were definitely in a spiritual battle.
It was spiritual.
I felt it. So many times I felt it. It was overwhelming at times.
Well, God brought us together for a reason. There was a purpose and a reason why he brought us together. And it was a force. And the devil was trying to break that up. And he almost succeeded. Had it not been for the prayers of my mom and dad and the prayers of your mom. And just,
prayer is powerful.
People don't understand. If we knew how powerful prayer and fasting was, we would not be where we are in this world today, being a Christian nation. As a Christian nation, if we understood the power of prayer and fasting, we understand the power of speaking. We understand the power and the arts of getting out there and making people come and having and speaking eloquently and bringing people to you, but we don't have prayer rooms. We don't get in there. We don't speak about prayer all the time. We speak about all these other things
else.
And we lose focus on what the true essential, because when you understand the power of prayer, because the Bible talks about that. He says, there are some things that you guys want. They do not come about but by prayer and fasting. That's the only way they come about. That's why you don't know the word.
Well,
People do not understand the word, because if we knew the word, we would be in postures of prayer right now, not postures of argument and debate. We would be in postures of prayer.
We would be lamenting to God about the condition of our country and the world. We would literally. Prayer is powerful, but what it does is it continues to build that relationship between you and God. It changes you. It corrects you. It restores you. It heals you. It heals you from your past. Some of the abuse I went and got counseling for when we were first married, but God, in the end, is the one who really healed me and who restored me. We both went to counseling for us, but it was God who restored us.
And Vonnie Marshall was incredible. She's the one that began to help me see the power of who you were. And Vonnie began to able to see there's still things inside you, Stephenie, that you've got to get out. You still haven't healed from those wounds of your past that we talked about.
Because I was being triggered.
Because you were being triggered by things that were happening with me. I was nothing like your ex-husband was, but there was things that I was doing that was triggering that in you. There was things that you were doing that was triggering things in me.
We were triggering each other.
Yeah, and the thing is, she began to be able to bring it because she knew the word.
Yeah.
And she knew we knew the word. She's the one that told me, she said, Asbel, you do know you're never going to win against God. Because I kept saying, I did that. I'm telling you right now, I told her I didn't want to do ministry or whatever. She said, do you hear what you're saying? She said, that's where it got me back to the pride piece. And she said, you do know this isn't about Stephenie. You are fighting with God and you're going to lose. That's how she talked to me. And I would sit back and I needed that because I'm like thinking, she's right. I will never, ever win in a fight against God. Yeah. You will never win in a fight against God.
Never.
Ever.
You can try because you tried.
I tried.
But God was softening
God
your
in
heart.
His infinite mercy and wisdom, babe, this is where I learned the power of grace.
Right.
I learned the power of who He was, that He wasn't on the judgment throne anymore because that's where I had Him. He was
Yes.
judging me.
Well, you were
I was-
told that a lot.
Because that's how I was raised. Like
that-
there was a checklist.
Like He's on the throne, but He's judging like a judge. He's judging you.
He's punitive.
He's
a
punitive, but
God.
He was drawing you. He's wanting to heal you. But there's so much more we could talk about on this. But
Man, that's a loaded question.
we didn't get to the question
And
about me, but we can do that another time.
We're going to do that in the next episode, because then when you get into your minds, now that you know where I was, where my mind's eye, this is where we were. Like now you can kind of understand where my brain was thinking through all of this process. It may give you inspiration if you're there now.
Right.
If you're maybe our past is resonating with your present. Is there's hope, but you have to do the work through the process.
It takes work.
It is going to take work.
work.
Anything that you do is going to take work. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
It is not
Everything
easy.
takes work.
That-
But
That's why it's called a journey. That's why Paul said.
we both don't talk. But you grow though. You grow so much. We're so different.
Oh, than we were 16 years ago.
So you
Dear
grow
God, are
through
we
it. You
different.
mature. Peter talks about that. You mature through it. He softens your heart.
Yeah.
It was hardened. God began to chip away and soften your heart towards the things of ministry. You're much more soft.
Oh,
And
dear Lord.
Lord, that's not your first thing you want to do, but you're more willing now. God, if you open this door, I'm gonna walk through it.
Well, I'm just open, willing. I'm tired of fighting. I'm done fighting him.
Like, Lord,
I will not win.
like, what's our next
I'm
season?
done.
What's the next
I'm
door,
done.
Lord? We were talking about last night at dinner. Lord, we're not sure exactly.
Yeah.
We're following you. Lead us.
Well, thank you for joining us on this Cup of Real. Wow, what a fantastic Cup of Real in an episode. And
Really good.
really it's just more for me and you maybe, and
Yeah.
something that you're learning through the process as we continue on our learning journey.
Amen.
And keep joining us. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Have a good day.